We're ready to go? Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and open the Hood River City Council meeting for February 14th at 6:01. We have, if you're listening in, we have Jessica Mehta, Mark Zandmiller, myself, Kate McBride, and Megan Saunders here. And then we also have Gladys Rivera and Tim Coonahan on Zoom. Eric wasn't able to join this evening. So for people listening, that is how we're configured this evening. I'm going to go ahead and do the land acknowledgement, and then we'll do the pledge. As we meet tonight, let us all remember that today we are stewards of land that has been home to indigenous peoples for thousands of years before the recent arrival of the European heritage dominant culture. We honor this land's ancestors as we go about our business today. And now we'll do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, for those that are in the audience, don't forget to turn off or silence your cell phones. And we are going to, let's see, we're going to recess first and then consider our urban renewal agenda. We have a fairly short urban renewal agenda this evening. So I'm going to recess our city council meeting and open the Hood River Urban Renewal Agency meeting of February 14th at 6:03. Are there any agenda additions or corrections?
Madam Mayor, when you conclude your regular business items, I'd like our planning director to give you just a short update on next steps for the Urban Renewal Agency.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
All right. Great. So we'll do the consent agenda, which is just the approval of the minutes from October 12th and November 18th. Do I have a motion on those?
I would move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Megan has made the motion and Mark has made a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? And the chair votes aye. All right, that's approved. Regular business items, Urban Renewal Advisory Committee appointments. So is Will going to do this, or?
Will is not here today, but I'd be happy to just walk through really quickly. And Dustin, please jump in. I
Okay.
believe you received, so this position was advertised for our normal measures. We received 2 applications for the position. One of the applicants does not live in the city and therefore was ineligible for appointment. So the person who is eligible is Mr. Clint Harris.
Okay.
So looking for action to appoint Mr. Harris to the committee, to URAC.
Okay, and Mr. Harris has been on as a temporary basis right now, filling someone else's position. Is that correct?
Yes, but
Yes,
thank you.
yeah, that's correct.
That's correct. Okay.
That's
All right. All right.
nothing more to add on that.
Nothing more than that. Okay. All right. So any additional questions? No. Okay. Do I have a motion? There's a motion on page 17.
I am happy to make a motion to reappoint Clint Harris to the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee.
I second.
I have a motion by Mark and a second by Gladys to reappoint Clint Harris to the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed?
Chapman will abstain.
Okay, I can't, okay. Christy, are you just on phone, not on?
I am having some internet issues, so I'm keeping my video off to try and keep
Oh,
this
okay,
as
okay.
best as possible. But yeah, I'll abstain because
Okay.
I don't know enough about it.
Okay, all right. So one abstention, Christy, and chair votes aye. I just double check. Is there any nays? I just wanted to double check that again. No, okay. All right, great. We have reappointed Clint Harris to the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee. And then Dustin, do you have an update for us?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Although we're light on the agenda, there's lots of work happening with the agency staff, especially around the Heights. Right now, the URAC is project team, Will Norris and I, MIG and DKS have been working on the evaluation criteria of your 3 Heights. We call them the alternatives, the 3 general alternatives that were presented to the agency at its last meeting. We are doing this as we continue to refine those first looks from the technical perspective and in anticipation of bringing those alternatives and some of the looks to public workshop. We hope in April, and we were hoping in person. So we've been waiting, for this second phase where we evaluate some of the alternatives of the project out there and hoping sharing that with the community and getting feedback and really trying to make this an in-person event at the Armory. So in the Heights, we're going to be talking about this later with the URAC later in the week and bringing back some ideas regarding messaging, how we advertise, who we advertise, that targeted approach that we've also been working on. So more to come on that, much more to come. The next thing is, City Council is going to meet this Saturday to talk about the future of urban renewal and how it looks in the city. One of those projects being West Cascade or West Side urban renewal plan. That's something that we will, I think there's some set aside in that meeting to talk about that, how it looks and how council wants to evaluate that and bring it to the agency for action in the future. So Will and I have been working on that quite a bit, trying to get some parameters and bring you something to work on. So if you have any questions for us, any issues, concerns, what you're hearing, I'm happy to take them to the team. Otherwise, we will be back with materials for the board to really make some decisions when it comes to policy and to share with the information in our findings. Other than that, thank you.
Great. Does
I have
anyone
a-
have questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Dustin, does this also include the work groups that were established for the Heights?
You mean the stakeholder groups? We will notice them. Part of, and I guess what Councilor Rivera is speaking to is a part of our outreach. We had a public facing survey. Then we also had some targeted work groups, interest groups from the Latinx community, from business community that we had stakeholder input on, areas maybe that were of particular interest groups that will be rolled into the evaluation criteria and shared as a part of our greater report.
Can I ask a question, Dustin? Are those groups that you're talking about also, because this is a thoroughfare from, the Upper Valley, is there any interest groups from outside of the city? And I know that, that poses its own list of challenges and whatnot, but are you bringing in outside people from the city to also weigh in on these?
Yeah, when we, thank you, Member Chapman. When we initially did our goal setting, we had a specific outreach group to Upper Valley that was focused on that group. Call it Middle Valley, and I guess a group that was pretty well voiced and represented and we met with them right from the onset as an interest group that was going to have a stake in the outcome of the Heights. So we had a directed outreach to that interest group and members that wish to participate and be heard.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Thank you all. We'll be back with more messaging soon.
All right. Do any other urban renewal members have anything else for this evening? Christy?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. I can see other people nodding or saying no with their heads. So I just wanted to check. Okay, thank you so much. We will adjourn our Urban Renewal Agency meeting then. And we will get back to our Hood River City Council meeting and take that back up at 6:12. So the next thing is business from the audience. And I have four people. Tracy Thomas Paul is first. She had signed up first. And I think she's on Zoom. And then right after that would be Peter Cornelison, who is also on Zoom. And then we have Nate Duvall. And then White Buffalo Calf will be after that.
Hi, this is Tracy. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you. My name is Tracy Thomas Paul, and I live in Hood River. I listen to the City Planning Commission meetings regularly. Many meetings are thorough reviews of applications for design standard exceptions or variances. But they're also where commissioner and staff debate plus public comments have produced the transportation plan and priorities, so-called missing middle housing standards, and more. The details arising from meetings provide the basis for part of the city's building codes for a livable and safe city. In the January 18th meeting, commissioners reviewed the application for a housing development near Rocky Road and May Street, near where I live. Much of the discussion considered the dangers of the Rocky Road and May Street intersection and the risks to pedestrians and bicyclists, particularly kids. The striking part of the meeting was that each commissioner recognized what neighbors and trail users report. Rocky Road, which functions in the city both as a vehicle road and part of the West Side Community Trail, is already unsafe for walkers and cyclists. The Rocky Road May Street intersection is dangerous too, but the city code only requires review of motor vehicle capacity and safety for its developer traffic safety analyses. This is a serious deficiency in the city's code. City council members routinely express support for pedestrians and bicyclists and seem to support transportation that isn't exclusively vehicle-oriented. But the municipal code fails to require review of non-vehicle safety on roads. Rocky Road is an extreme example of the deficiency because it's both a road and a trail. Every day, kids walk to and from the West Side Elementary School using Rocky Road to connect to May Street. When pedestrians or cyclists are in the middle of the trail, also known as Rocky Road, vehicles must use extreme care to navigate around them. The road width at Rocky and May is so tight that vehicles sometimes wait on May for a vehicle from Rocky to exit, while flooding at the west side of the intersection forces pedestrians walking north to stand partly in the road while waiting to run across. Dustin admitted he is not sure there's a modernized crossing. There's not. All the commissioners expressed concern over the road trail's safety and the lack of any requirement to evaluate pedestrian or bike safety. Commissioner Mary Ruth Petzing said she was frustrated with the requirements for the traffic impact study, saying, "It doesn't seem to have taken into account anything about pedestrian and bike traffic at that intersection," which generally is a concern that I have about these assessments. But when it's an actual trail, that seems to be a pretty egregious oversight. Neighbors agree. At the upcoming council work meeting, please consider making it a priority to require traffic safety analyses that will consider the impact on walker and bicyclist safety. Let's stop pretending that adding 150 daily vehicle trips or 5% more vehicle traffic to a road or intersection only affects drivers. Add pedestrian and bike safety into the traffic safety analyses required for new private and city developments. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Tracy, for bringing that to our attention. Peter Cornelison.
Hello, counselors, and Mayor McBride. Happy Valentine's Day. It's a sweet time to live in Hood River. And I'm especially pleased to see that the May Street elevated sidewalk project agreements will be authorized tonight. This is something I worked on while I was the city's representative to ODOT Region 1 Act. It's taken some time to come to fruition, but it's sweet too. Tonight, I'd like to draw your attention to Council Resolution 2019-16 dealing with the climate crisis. About 2.5 years ago, members of CGCAN and students from Hood River High School came and asked you to address this issue, and the city agreed to 5 points to end municipal greenhouse gas emissions by 2035, review progress and update climate implementation strategies every year, to partner to educate city residents about global warming, to keep the concerns of vulnerable communities in mind and invite participation, and finally, to advocate for climate action at all levels of government and society. Through the city's own actions and in partnership with the Hood River Energy Council, progress continues to be made. Since this resolution was passed, the cities of White Salmon, Bingen, Lisle, The Dalles, and Mosier have either passed climate resolutions or are considering some form of climate action. Hood River is leading the way. However, as we know, more remains to be done. I would like to suggest that during the city's upcoming goal-setting meeting this Saturday, you consider the 5 commitments the city has made and how the progress is going towards achieving those aims. I have 2 suggestions. One would be for the city to participate in the 2022 Earth Month or Earth Day activities on Friday, April 22nd. This could come as an annual report of the city's progress towards its climate goals, or even as an informal public gathering. I know some students are planning to gather at Overlook Park as a part of Fridays for the Future. Maybe the city or individual counselors would like to participate. Another suggestion would be to look over and provide comments on March 8th about the climate action plan the Columbia River Gorge Commission has spent the last year preparing. I'd be happy to provide more information. Thank you for your service to the city and our community. I appreciate your commitment to the public good. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Nate Duvall. Yeah, right up here, Nate. Yeah. Yeah, just tap that little round thing and it should turn green somewhere on the side.
Oh, there we go. Cool. All right. Hello, Nathan Duvall, 2770 Montello, Hood River, Oregon, 97031. Council, I wanted to chat with you guys quick tonight briefly about the Rand Road project. Number one, thank you for making that happen. It's a pretty unprecedented opportunity for the city to leverage its goals in creating housing and have the opportunity to do it without relying necessarily completely on the private development community. However, housing in a community, a metaphor that's often used is it works best when it's a ladder, when there are rungs that folks can work from no housing to rental housing to home ownership and then move on within the home ownership space. One thing that I think is really important for that project to truly be a legacy project is to get a home ownership piece built into it. And I know that some of that has been discussed with the current developer, and I know that there was a bit of a dead end because of the cost. I would ask and hope that the council would maybe revisit this purchase agreement and set aside the portion that was slated for the current developer to do home ownership and set it aside for some amount of time till a later date to have a discussion with a community land trust of some sort to look at a home ownership model for that. The thing that I'm thinking about here is that we have a lot of need, obviously, for housing. And I remember this from being on the planning commission when we did the housing needs analysis and working through all that. Those needs are at a variety of income levels, and a variety of employers are affected by these things. Rental housing is something we'll probably never have enough of. We'll never have enough homeownership options either, but that shouldn't preclude us from taking the opportunity to doing a little bit of both on one of these projects for a couple of reasons. Number one, if we work with the CLT, Community Land Trust, on a portion of this Rand Road project, there's no additional cost to the city. And I know that the funding gap was part of the problem with this current developer, was they couldn't do the ownership piece without there being additional cost, which put the project into a kind of a weird economic space. So I think that there's some opportunity that we're maybe missing. And remember that the city council, the city has the leverage. They own the property. This is a very unique situation. We can sort of drive this bus wherever we want. If we need or want home ownership opportunities on this parcel that stay in a land trust where they stay affordable in perpetuity, we have the ability to do that. The developer's not going to walk away from this project. There's money to be made, whether they build 100 units or 120 units. I think you guys really can flex a little bit on this and make the types of solutions you want to happen. And I think it also gives you guys the opportunity, if you do a couple different models on this parcel, the next time that there's, construction excise tax money available or some money available, and you acquire more land, you'll now have two different opportunities or models to say, oh, what might work on this, instead of going to the blank slate and saying, gosh, what do we do with this piece of property? If you can do a couple different things at the same time on this current one, you'll start to build out that model, so you'll understand better what to do in future acquisitions. So that's all I got for you. We've got some really talented people in town who are working with our community land trusts, and they're chomping at the bit to help you guys get, that portion. Because again, I'll finish again with the ladder metaphor. We need to fill all those points out. And the homeownership portion is really huge for our employment sector, because we get people that when their employment, gets better, their incomes get better, they start to income out of some of the subsidies, and then there's really no rung on the ladder for them to get to at all. It's just a blank, for a long ways. The homeownership portion can be that next rung, or at least it can sort of repair a rung that's broken. So thank you very much. Again, great work on acquiring that property. This is a huge step forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this thing comes together. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. White Buffalo, calf, one on a say. Hopefully I'm getting your, okay. There you go.
Hello. Dear Hood River City Council, I had my trial for driving on a suspended license case on Friday, February 4th. I was found guilty and was ordered to pay a $500 fine, but no jail time, probation, or community service. The case will go on to the Court of Appeals, where I hope the law can be changed to consider a mental state of knowing, so that the state and the Oregon DMV can be held accountable for their lack of transparency, communication, and false promises on their website, and for the police hate crime awareness. There's a copy of my testimony on my Facebook if you would like to read it. I will continue to file complaints against your officers, Emma Delancey of the Hood River City Police and Sheriff Ricardo Castaneda of Hood River County, who are still out enforcing the law today. My constitutional rights were violated by these men, and nobody cares. They are the real criminals deserving punishment and should not be allowed to continue enforcing laws with obvious biases. They made me a victim of a hate crime and get away with it because there is no accountability. Who is policing the police? They are not the perfect angels the state makes them out to be. They are sick and in need of healing, and that is why I asked you to implement a trauma responder program and require mandatory healing for the police to protect our citizens from them. How many more will become victim because I go ignored? This is why I continue to try to educate the community in hopes that other innocent people will not become needlessly trapped and oppressed in the same ways that I have. Police brutality and criminality is real, and it needs to be addressed. According to Delancey, I was lucky he didn't throw me down and break every bone in my body. Lucky me. George Floyd was not so lucky. Will it take another person to die before you listen? The Constitution is in place to protect the people from the government. Hood River City Council takes power away from the people. You gave power to the police. I was listening last year when the police proposed a $50 fee to anyone who changes their plea in court because it's an inconvenience to the police. Why did you agree to that? Maybe you should question your thinking and consider if this is what your community wants. Just because you will never get a ticket because you are on the city council and do whatever the police ask doesn't mean that is how the rest of us are treated. As I have mentioned before, your town here has some of the highest DUI arrest records in the Pacific Northwest. This is a problem that needs to be fixed. What are you doing to prevent all these DUIs this spring and summer during the heavy tourist season? I will be monitoring the numbers, and if I do not see a decline, I will take further action, as you do not provide enough safe transportation for everyone to get around safely. If you are going to allow people to legally drink in public, unlike most places, then this should be the safest place to drink and get around. I suggest offering free rides and having a well-orchestrated plan to communicate all the transportation options to the residents and tourists so they know how to get around, who to call, and listed hours of operation. If you're not going to require more transportation, I think you should at least be responsible for warning the tourists that we have only 2 cabs and no Uber or Lyft, so they should confirm their ride before deciding to have any drinks, because the police are aggressive here and there is a DUI problem. Great Spirit bless. White Buffalo Calf Wanna P.S. My happy Valentine's Day and Cowlitz Federal Recognition Day. 22 short years ago today, the Cowlitz Indian tribe, of which I belong, was federally recognized, and we are so proud. My Native people taught me perseverance and to never give up the good fight. Take care.
Thank you. All right, that's all our business from the audience this evening. We have a presentation this evening regarding the annual farmers market with Hannah Ladwig. Good evening, Hannah.
Hello. Thank you for having me today. I want to also thank you for your long support of the farmers market. So historically, since 2018, the city has waived our lot fee for the farmers market in 5th and Columbia, and we've historically used that money to go to our SNAP match program. Our SNAP match program helps support folks who are using SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, at the market, so they can come swipe their EBT card and then receive up to $15 free to spend on fruits, vegetables, and local food. So we know that hunger is an issue in our community. Before the pandemic, 1 in 3 people identified as being hungry or food insecure. And that's not just a statistic from rural parts of the Gorge. We know that at May Street Elementary and Hood River Middle School, stats are between like 35 and low 42%, I think. And then we know that those numbers are even higher in the Middle and Upper Valley. And then we also know that the pandemic has only made hunger worse, especially for communities of color and BIPOC communities. So the SNAP Match program is a real win-win-win for our community. It gets folks more local food, it supports our local farmers, and it helps bolster our local economy. So some stats for you on our last season, 2021. Our SNAP sales, so not including the match we distributed, were over $18,000, which was nearly double than the previous year. We also gave out more than $8,600 in match incentives, which was also more than double of the year before. And then we know that about 180 SNAP customers visited our market last year. So in your packet, you can kind of see a graph of the really extreme growth that our SNAP Match program has seen, in part thanks to your support. I also included some other statistics in the packet and some quotes from some of our SNAP users as a thanks for your support. And then beyond the SNAP Match program, we know that the market in general is growing. So last year, we were able to support 70 local farmers, food producers, and small business owners. We had a 38% increase in sales from 2020, which is the largest leap in sales from the previous year. So we also know that vegetable sales grew by 12%. Tree fruit sales grew by 24%. We reached a ton of milestones last year. So we had the highest opening day sales, highest single day sales, highest monthly sales, highest vegetable sales. The list goes on. And then we also partnered with Columbia Area Transit to offer free Gorge passes to folks who are using food assistance programs like the SNAP Match program at the market, so they can get free transportation to the market. And so we are again gearing up for a successful season in 2022. We are working really diligently to support new and beginning and socially disadvantaged farmers and food producers through a few programs. And then we're again always focusing on ensuring that community members have access to fresh local food through programs like SNAP Match. So thinking about the 22 season, I'd again ask that the city waive our lot fee for the season, with the understanding that we use that money for the SNAP Match program. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for your presentation, Hannah, and all the data that you gave us ahead of time.
Yeah.
So really appreciate it. Does anyone have questions for Hannah?
You just have a good job. Keep it up. I think it's great. Yeah, nice.
I'll just second that. I love the graph and the growth in SNAP usage. That's pretty amazing to see. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Gladys?
Hi, Hannah. Thank you so much for being here. Great presentation. I do have a couple questions for you. What is Gorge Grown doing to implement more cultural diversity amongst the farmers markets downtown is my first question.
Yeah, so like I said, we're really focusing this year on engaging new farmers, socially disadvantaged farmers, including farmers of color, food producers of color. So some of that comes in the form of a new vendor info night, which we're hosting. We're also hosting some workshops in collaboration with MCED to let folks know about, food licensing and especially exemptions that they can fall under to make selling at the farmers market a lot more accessible than they may think. We're going to be working with the next door to also have those trainings in Spanish, which will kind of hopefully help broaden the pool of vendors that are currently represented at the market.
That's so exciting to hear. Can you tell me the demographic makeup of the SNAP participants for this last year?
I can't actually. We haven't really collected any demographic data, but I love to share my data with you guys. So I'd be more than happy to collect that for the 2022 season.
I'm really curious. You mentioned that in the past, right, you've collaborated with May Street and some of the local schools here. And so I'm just curious, out of those schools, if any of those kiddos are actually attending the markets themselves in order to get that SNAP match.
Yeah, we see a ton of kids come through the market. So we saw a ton of pandemic EBT. And so the benefits distributed through the schools, we saw a ton of parents using that. And then we also have the POP program. So we give $2 tokens to kids to spend on fruits and vegetables. So we see a ton of kids coming through the market for that, and like repeat kids who are there every week who are excited to get their tokens and spend it on, whatever.
Thank you, Hannah. I appreciate hearing about your collaborative partnerships, and thanks for all the work that you're doing.
Yes, thanks.
Anyone else? Okay.
Do we have a motion or anything?
Yeah, we'll probably do, if we can go ahead and do that this evening.
Sure. So I would move that we waive the parking lot fee for the Hood River Farmers Market for the 2022 season.
I second.
Everybody wants a second.
6 seconds.
6 seconds. Yeah. Megan has made a motion, and Gladys and Jessica have seconded that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any nays? Chair votes aye. There
Thank
you
you.
go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for what you're doing. All right, that concludes our presentation. So I'll open the work session. Any additions or corrections? Abigail, anything different on
Not
that?
to the work session, no.
Okay, all right. So we have a intergovernmental agreement regarding Parks SDC's exemptions for affordable housing. Dustin?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm picking this one up for Will. At the January 12th meeting, city staff and elected representation made presentation before the Parks Board. This request is pursuant to our Rand Road Development Agreement. The IGA is an agreement between Parks and Rec and the city. They agreed to waive the park impact or park system development charge fee for the development based on a number of conditions and assumptions. These are memorialized in this IGA, specifically in section 2, and where you'll find the request that they did approve this. Legal counsels, both city and parks, have evaluated this, and we're looking for a motion to approve this matter tonight on your regular agenda.
Okay, not on consent. Or,
Oh, if you're willing to do it on consent, it has been discussed before you, so that's really your purview. So.
okay, all right. Any questions for Dustin on the Parks agreement?
I guess I'll just say, I appreciate the Parks District willingness to do this. We're more than happy to waive our SDCs, so was no problem putting that in there. And so, yeah, just thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, I'll just jump on that same wagon, and this is sort of cooperation in action kind of thing, and it only helps when different entities like parks and city work together to get the greater good. So thanks to staff for working with them, and thanks to Park District for finding that happy place.
I'll second both of those comments.
All right,
Same.
okay. All right.
I
any-
approve the proposed IGA with the Parks District exempting the affordable housing development at 780 Rand Road from Parks SDCs.
I'll second that.
Jessica's made the motion, and Megan has seconded the motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Parks District exempting the affordable housing development at 780 Rand Road from Parks SDCs.
So is that moving it to consent, or is it?
I think that the motion was just to approve it, but I don't
Okay.
know that it makes,
I don't know.
we do that. We're fine with that, I think.
Yes.
All right. All right. Any additional discussion? All right, those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, any nays? Any abstentions? Chair votes aye. All right. Kevin?
Is Miss Thomas Poole supposed to still be on the call?
She is. She is, I guess. But we can't address her issues at this meeting.
Counselor, I believe she's attending the meeting by Zoom. I mean, so she's watching it, but she's
She's
not a
watching it.
panelist, so she's not able to,
We can't
speak.
discuss anything with her.
but she
She's
can
not-
stay on the call to watch and listen.
We see her as a panelist, just so you know.
Say that again, Tim?
We see her as a panelist. I don't think it really makes any difference, but just so you know, we see her as a panelist.
Thanks, Counselor. City Recorder's looking into it. Appreciate it.
I'm just saying, since she was business from the audience, we wouldn't have a back and forth with her on the discussion item. I guess that's all I'm saying. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Kevin. We're ready. Rand Road Purchase Option Agreement.
Thank you, Mayor McBride and councilors. Joining us, I believe, are Brian Vanneman, Principal at Leland Consulting Group, Jessica Woodruff, Director of Development for Community Development Partners, and Joel Madsen, Executive Director of the Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation and Mid-Columbia Housing Authority. First, thank you for your support of the IGA with the Parks District. Tonight, staff does request council approval of a purchase option agreement with Community Development Partners and Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation associated with development of affordable housing at 780 Rand Road. The proposed agreement defines the basic framework under which the developer may obtain ownership of the property. The agreement is necessary to demonstrate the developer has site control, which is essential to qualify for certain state and federal funding sources. The cover sheet on pages 12 and 13 of the council packet provides background and describes major deal points in the agreement. For example, a responsibility of the developer to build a minimum of 120 units of regulated low-income housing, affordable to households at 60% of area median income or less for a period of not less than 60 years. And for example, responsibility of the city to convey the property to the developer at no cost. There are a variety of other requirements of both parties. Based on feedback provided by the council, the agreement now explicitly notes that community engagement will be dual language. Key signage will be provided in English and Spanish. Care must be taken to protect significant trees to the extent feasible. It addresses public accessibility of recreational amenities, and it addresses the West Side Trail, ensuring it will be designed for future connectivity with termini at logical locations. There is some urgency to complete the purchase option agreement. Site control must be demonstrated within 30 days of a soon-to-be issued RFP for project-based vouchers, and the developer must demonstrate site control with a funding application for the state's LIFT rental program, which is due in April. If the agreement is not approved, we may miss these funding opportunities, and we may need to wait a year for the next funding cycle. If funding applications are successful, the city and the developer anticipate negotiating a subsequent development agreement that refines deal points from this purchase option agreement. The purchase option agreement has been reviewed by legal counsel for both the city and the developer. Brian Vanneman, Will Norris, and I coordinated closely on the agreement with our attorney, Deborah Phillips. And again, staff is recommending approval of the purchase option agreement as presented, and there is a suggested motion on page 13 of your packet.
Thank you, Kevin. I had my speaker off. Does anyone have any additional questions this evening about the purchase option and the refinements that we made to it?
I have a question for Mr. Madsen in regards to the status of the land trust for Mid-Columbia Housing Authority or Columbia Cascade.
Councilor Rivera, thanks for the question. Could you clarify what you're asking for?
Yeah, when we were reviewing proposals, there was discussion, or there was a couple sentences that Mid-Columbia Housing Authority or Columbia Cascade was establishing a land trust. And I'd like to know the status of where that's at. Has that been established, or how far is the Housing Authority from having a land trust, or Columbia Cascade?
Thank you so much for that clarity, Councilor Rivera and Mayor McBride and council members. So again, Joel Madsen, and I'm here tonight as the Executive Director of Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation. I also am the Executive Director of Mid-Columbia Housing Authority. So with regard to the question of where our organization is at, this is a line of business that Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation, an existing 501c3 not-for-profit organization, is working to implement. And we are close enough to where we feel we could employ the major mechanisms that are part of a shared equity program or community land trust-like program. We have, again, that includes a ground lease provision, and frankly, most importantly, the staff expertise and capacity to be able to carry out the long-term commitments that are connected to those ground lease provisions. We have not been able to actually create a development where we've employed those ground lease provisions and implemented the shared equity for home ownership approach. So thanks for the question, and hopefully that answers as far as our current status goes with the shared equity program at Columbia Cascade Housing.
Other questions? Mark?
Yeah, first of all, for those of you working on this, the updates to the agreement, it looks really nice. I like how a lot of the things we talked about are incorporated now. So thanks to everyone for that. My one question that it might be in here is assurances of perpetuity for the subparts of paragraph 4. And we had talked about, I just can't remember how we had talked about making sure that once something is in per this agreement that it sort of stays in. And do I remember right that it was the land use approval process was the primary tool? Or do I miss the new language put in here that helps assure perpetuity to this list of things that we all agree are good?
Sure. Thank you, Councilor Zan Miller. Let me find the provision. A couple of things. And Brian Vanneman is here, and I think maybe has a more expeditious response. I don't think it's necessarily tied to the land use decision, but we do have some text in the purchase option agreement that gets at ultimately transfer of the property from community development partners to the Mid-Columbia Housing Authority, meaning it stays public. Brian, you want to jump in?
Sure. You'll see in section 4 that there is a requirement that the property, I'm reading here, let's see, for a term of not less than 60 years. So in other words, the project will remain affordable for 60 years. And I believe we say potentially and ideally longer than that. We talked about last time the challenge is that these projects will need to get recapitalized and almost rebuilt, just like any home or major multifamily project. There'll need to be likely new loans issued from the state or other sources to rebuild them and rebuild the systems in likely between 40 and 60 years. And so Darcy, who's not with us tonight, but who knows the affordable housing funding tools best, her experience is the projects, particularly when they're owned by somebody like CCHC, that CCHC will look to retain the affordability. They'll go out for new funding sources to renovate, refurbish the project in 40 to 60 years, and at that time would renew the affordability, hopefully for another 60 years. But we believe that 60 years is approximately the maximum we could ask for without essentially coming up with another $50 million to which is what it would cost, something on that order, and as we look out many, many years.
Mark, are you talking about you want the trails to have easements or long-term protection versus the housing, or?
In subpart 1, it talks about the 60 years. And
sorry.
Understood. Then there's all these other subparts that we all say, those are great. But I don't see anything that makes them a requirement once the ownership is transferred.
Is there one in particular that you would?
No, I mean, I think
some of them, it's like if they filled the wetland, they would get in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, all the way from, 2 through 8 are all things that we've said are beneficial to the community and the site. And I'm just saying, I'm not expecting someone that's trying to be sneaky. I'm just trying to say, how do we know that 10 years from now that those 8 things are all still part of the plan?
Pardon me. Thank you, Councilor Zan Miller. In that case, I think yes, the land use decision will address many of these points. I was under the impression you were really speaking to the long-term preservation of the affordable housing units in perpetuity. And so the overall project, referred to as the project in the document, again in section 4, this is top of page 16 of your PDF. The last couple of sentences in that section 4A sub 1 talk about that 60-year period. And ownership of the property shall transfer to the CCHC or Mid-Columbia Housing Authority not later than 20 years after the closing date. So that too, I think is part of keeping this in an affordable housing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Did I answer your question?
No.
No. Okay.
I think what you were trying to say though is with the trails, you know, that will be part of the land use portion of this. I mean, there'll be maps and the trail's supposed to go here, and the wetlands are here, and that will be part of the condition.
Yeah.
The land use decision.
Sure. With respect to trails specifically, absolutely. Right now, you've got an easement on the property for the West Side Community Trail. So that easement exists as a part of the development. There would be installation of trail improvements. The location may be modified a little bit. We want to make sure that the termini end up in the right spot so they can be connected and extended beyond the site. But yeah, in association with that land use decision, presumably you will have a location of the trail remaining in a public access easement. And that would remain as a part of the project, the development and long term.
So that would be protection for those portions.
I guess to the same point, I mean, I assume like the requirements to build, you know, the section of wine country or the Ridgeline Trail or put in signage, like those would all also be conditions of.
Sure. Public improvements, the street utility infrastructure would be addressed in association with that land use decision. Signage, to the extent that it is a part of the proposal, yes, could be addressed there as well. I think many, if not most, of these points could be addressed in the context of the land use decision.
And maybe that's where we're at here is we're request, you know, we agree with this here, and then we ask that when we get to the land use process that we meet the intent of the agreement.
Yeah, I think, and as staff reviews a land use application, we'll be looking for consistency with city code and city comp plan, including transportation system plan that shows the location of the trails that are expected and where streets and other infrastructure should be located. So yeah, in association with the land use approval, we'll be looking for all of those improvements to be in place.
Other more questions, Mark?
No.
Jessica, anything, questions on it? Okay. Megan? Okay. Gladys or Tim?
I don't have any
Tim?
questions at this time.
Oh, Tim?
Thanks, Mayor. I guess this is a question for Kevin. Can you describe how this purchase option agreement relates to the issues that Mr. Duvall brought up? What if any, does this affect the dynamic and the decisions associated with rental versus ownership?
Thank you, Councilor Cunahan. I need to be honest with you. I heard the front end of Mr. Duvall's presentation and the tail end. I had to step out, so I missed the middle of it. I did see a memo or a letter submitted to the City Council about 5:30 this evening from Candace Richards, probably touching on some of the same.
Some of the same issues for sure.
The way the purchase option agreement is set up, it does not anticipate a requirement for shared equity units, and it does not anticipate segregation of the northern portion of the property to be used by the land trust or any other entity.
Thank you, but the inclusion of that piece of property is kind of necessary for the deal to move forward. Is that correct?
Yeah, I should, as far as deal specifics go, I should have Brian speak to that, but it's my understanding that that portion of the property is, and the units that it can accommodate are extremely important to the overall financial success of the project as it is currently envisioned.
Yeah, I'd love to just say a few words about that. We received a letter this afternoon and knew that this would be an issue that would be raised at the council meeting this evening. And it's obvious for the city, for everybody involved in this process that ownership housing, shared equity housing is important. That said, I would reiterate what Kevin says. The purchase option you have in front of you this evening really assumes that, it says 120 units. The minimum we assume would be 129 units, which is what's been contemplated to date of rental housing. I would also say, unfortunately, I think the timing is not ideal for major reconsiderations, restructuring. I think the council has a choice here. We can move forward with the purchase option, essentially as drafted, which would position the city and CDP and others involved to submit a variety of applications in the next, it could be weeks to months, to get funding for the project. If the purchase option isn't approved, largely as is, then it kind of, there certainly need to be some rethinking of the deal structure, and I can go into details about that. But it's possible, although we can't be certain. It's certainly possible that prevents CDP, CCHC from submitting a series of applications, and that then we're in a 2023 round of applications, which is I'll be candid, I certainly was excited about moving forward this in 2022, but it's of course your decision, and as others pointed out, it's your land. But I do think from the financial point of view that it would require CDP and CHC to rethink how they're approaching this deal. If they have control of what's south of wine country, their previous proposal showed that as being essentially a $43 million project. It's $53 million if they then encompass north of wine country, and just big picture, that greater overall budget enables them to take on more of what we could broadly call infrastructure, but it's not just roads and pipes. It's a community center. It's preservation of the wetland. It's a park space. It's trails. And so what I worry about with the letter that the land trust sent today is that it may be overly optimistic, in as much as they may not be taking account of a number of other things that aren't just the structure itself, but the roads, the sidewalks, the trails, the community center, the park, the wetland preservation, et cetera. And those are, I think we would be looking at significant reconsideration of how the deal works. And I think a more significant funding gap. One thing to take into account is that CDP's forecast to date have been on the order of $4.4 million of site improvements. That's $40,000 a door, and I don't think that the land trust is necessarily taking account of that cost. And so I think it's hard to say sitting here, but my view would be likely we'd have to rethink the deal. We could well miss the 2022 windows, and there'd be a funding gap of perhaps somewhere on the order of $40,000 a door for the additional owner occupied housing. And lastly, the housing that's being proposed by the land trust is 120% AMI, which is not as deeply affordable as the rental housing, but it's a there's more to say, but I'll stop there.
I have a follow-up question with that. And to be honest, I don't know how to ask it, but at some point, knowing that Columbia Cascade or Mid-Columbia Housing Authority will establish a land trust, is that something that could come to fruition through this process?
I'd be
Councilor Rivera, Brian, you want to take a crack at it, and I can have a quick follow-up, Brian.
Yeah. Councilor Rivera, we certainly explored that with CDP and CCHC, and they are certainly, interested. Obviously, CCHC is very interested in providing the shared equity model. It's, as everybody has said, there's no question. It's something that's needed. I think one of the challenges that CDP and CCHC faced is that they partly for, I think, emission-driven reasons, and partly because of the way the state incentives are structured, they were targeting 70 to 80% AMI, and so it creates a challenge where they're trying to build these more expensive, nice townhomes for households that struggle more to afford them. So we looked at doing this and that in this project, but it really the funding gap increased to many millions of dollars. So that's where we left it last time. It's possible we could re-explore it. Kevin, do you want to add more?
Just would mention that Will Norris and Planning Director Dustin Nilsson have continued to search for other available properties where something like this could be implemented.
I want to say thank you, Brian, and thank you, Kevin, for your thoughtful responses.
Anything else from anyone? I think everyone has asked any question that I was going to ask, so I don't have any additional questions. Thanks so much. Are people feeling about good? Thumbs up or?
Yeah, overall, I feel good. And I just have a last comment to make. I know that there are many more housing projects that are coming. This is not the first or the only one that will take place for the city of Hood River in regards specifically to affordable housing. But it is also important that we look to diversify mixed socioeconomic statuses in these projects, because it's important to just simply have that sort of diversity amongst these housing projects that will continue to come to fruition as years come.
Thanks, Gladys. Megan?
Yeah, I think I want to just comment. One, yeah, certainly second Gladys. I think having a mix is always great, and I think this is there's the mix of the, like, obviously even this project, if everything goes great, is still multiple years before folks move in. So it's really hard to ever say let's slow this down, because boy, those units are desperately needed. And also, yeah, acknowledging that we have a lot of work ahead of us to do many more projects like this or in other realms of affordable housing. Constantly keeping in mind, Nate's point of ownership is also critically needed. And so just balancing those two things. But I think for where we're at right now, getting any unit on the ground is kind of where I'm at. So thank you to everyone who's been working on this.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
So I too agree with the goal of the land trust model and moving towards ownership and even the 120%. I think that today we have a timeline to meet this money proposals, and so I support this effort because it's a big project that keeps it moving, and we don't need to at the 11th hour stop. But it doesn't mean that, I'm still supportive of that model. And like Kevin said, we're still looking for properties and stuff. So I look forward to future opportunities to support the land trust model for ownership as well, and cover that rung of the ladder. So just to just to be clear.
I agree with Mark. Yeah, well said.
I agree. I mean, I'd love to be able to, have another property right now, start working on it. Let's get some of that model in there. But I don't want to slow this one down at all. I just don't want to, possibly have to push this off another year. It just seems like it's taken so long to get to this point. I just don't want to jeopardize it at all. So,
All
anyone
right.
make a
I am happy to move to approve the purchase option agreement between the city and CDP CCHC as presented on tonight's consent agenda.
Second.
Gladys has made a motion and Tim has seconded the approval of the purchase option agreement between the city and CDP and CCHC as presented on tonight's consent agenda. Additional discussion. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Chair votes aye. Unanimously approved. All right. Let's see. Moving along. We're going to adjourn the work session and open the regular council meeting. Any agenda additions or corrections for that this evening?
Mayor, if, I have one small item when you have after council call, if you could call on me for a quick announcement.
Okay.
And then a little bit confused, sorry, with the motion that you just took, you said as stated on the consent agenda. So the consent agenda is later in the agenda, but I think you have now done the vote. I don't think you need to revisit that on the consent agenda, do you?
No.
Sorry.
We've in the past occasionally moved something to.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes we do move
Right.
it on to consent.
Yeah, but I believe you have taken the necessary action already. Okay, that was for my benefit.
All right.
Yeah,
That's
you
it.
tell us.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Because we don't have it actually listed on the consent agenda. We would have been moving it to consent agenda. But no, we've approved it. So, all right. So consent agenda is next. Council meeting minutes and approval of stormwater line design right away for ODOT on the Main Street elevated sidewalk are items. Do we have a
I
motion?
would move we approve the consent agenda.
Second, Wayne's World. Right.
Megan's made a motion and Mark has seconded approval of the consent agenda. Anyone need to abstain? No, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any nays? Okay. Regular business item. Dustin, COVID-19 business support and temporary use.
Thank you, Mayor. We are what feels like coming into spring this year on 2023. And this is a matter we're looking for some council direction and authorization. Over the past 2 years, we worked on a number of business support programs in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. These included the use of parklets, temporary uses for commercial to occupy outside spaces, as well as some park and rental reservation policies relating to the use of public property. As we move into now 2022, we're looking for some authorization to maintain the use of these. Although we may be hopefully turning the corner here, the future of this and business response is still uncertain. So we are asking for council to sustain these programs throughout this year in preparation for a discussion in the fall regarding their future. Many of these programs have been very popular. If you wanted to make them permanent, that would be something that we would like to entertain later this year to give businesses an opportunity to respond.
All right, discussion, Megan?
Thank you, Dustin. I mean, I'm generally supportive. I guess I'm definitely very supportive of next fall, actually having a community conversation about this. As we're doing that, I'd love to activate the chamber / Visit Hood River and the Downtown Business Association. Like, in my dream world, they'll just tell us what they want and I don't have to make a choice. But I think that's a great long-term strategy to plan on a conversation. So thank you.
Thanks, Justin. The only one, and maybe the discussion in the fall is the right way to go, but I have been historically sensitive to the reason we move carts around every 6 months, and that sort of made sense to me. I don't know, have you heard that line item continues to be a hardship in these COVID days, or does allowing them not to move, is that helpful to the environment, or is it just something that sort of tagged along with these other ones?
Well, it was one of the responses. I mean, again, specifically targeted businesses to allow what has been a 6-month window or sunset to be allowed to be continued for the carts. There really is going to be a policy discussion. So in terms of council's action before this was something that you wanted to allow some additional time period on relocations. I couldn't tell you that I've done any analysis on impact and or efficacy of the program other than the people who have the carts appreciate it, that's from there.
I do recall when we made that policy choice, a lot of it was about the county health department needs to review the move. And given their staffing and resource challenges, part of it was the reality of that's going to be hard.
We also had food cart owners reach out to us about this issue about a year ago or so, that they were facing hardships with just moving the carts.
Due to COVID or due to just having to move them?
With having to move them and the limited availability of the health department to be there. And I'm happy to forward that email because I did just look through it a couple days ago.
Yeah, I know there has been people that have, it's been a hardship to move. I mean, they'd love to not have to move.
Sure.
But I just think, it is a policy decision.
I think having it be part of the fall discussion is a fine idea. And to me, that was the one that I thought was this is Mark's opinion, of the ones that could move to permanence. That one I'm less favorable towards, but I think that I'm not asking us to pull the rug out from anyone right now, and so the fall is fine.
I'm okay with leaving it as a temporary use to not move until fall, and then we'll do policy discussion then. And then everything you've got on here is dealing with COVID, and we are still in COVID.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be great to have some more discussion in the fall and support this stability for the businesses this spring and summer.
Tim?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, all right. Did you have any something else, Megan, first? Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
I move to authorize staff to proceed with the temporary permitting program for parklets, temporary uses, and food carts, and to continue the suspension of park shelter rentals.
I'll second.
Tim's made a motion and Megan has seconded to authorize staff to proceed with a temporary permitting program for parklets, temporary uses, and food carts, and to continue the suspension of park shelter rentals. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, I was about to sneeze.
Those voting no? Abstentions? Chair votes aye. Unanimous approval. Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you, Mayor. And then we will bring that forward. We'll work on that and bring that forward August, September, October,
Okay,
for further discussion and then policy direction.
okay, great.
Thank you.
Great, all right. So the last thing we have, a mayor call. So the last thing in your packet is a letter to the Oregon Transportation Commission. They're the ones that are making decisions on money or recommendations on money that's coming in through the IIJA. This is one-time infusion money. And this is a letter regarding to ask for $20 million for engineering for the Hood River Bridge, Hood River White Salmon Bridge. And they have about 15% of their money that is going to be going to ODOT, has to be used for off-system improvements, which is the Hood River Bridge. It's not ODOT, it's not WashDOT, it's a privately owned bridge at this point, and that's what it's going to be in the future. So this money is to help with engineering out of that particular bucket of money. Probably won't happen again. And so this is just asking them to please give that to us for the engineering. And so I did testify about this money and talked to several different phone calls with Mike Fox, myself, Bob Benton did some, Kevin Greenwood, who's the project manager for the port. And we met with several legislators, to talk about this and the bi-state commission that it is now, let's see, I'm trying to remember. It's gone through one house in Washington and one in Oregon. And I think it's in a committee in Oregon. And maybe it's gone into the other legislative body in Washington already. So it's moving along. We think it's going to get passed within the next 3 weeks to make this commission in order to, they would be in charge of the new bridge when the new bridge is built and helping get it done. So that this is to ask for money, some of that money that's coming in. And I just thought it would be more powerful. I mean, I could sign it as only mayor, but I just thought it was more powerful if the whole city agreed that we would put it in as a city. So if you guys are okay with that, asking them for money.
I like this, and I also just like the idea of these collaborative partnerships in regards to how do we leverage these funds or ask for these funds together in order to really maximize that we really need this to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, two counties, 2 states, 3 cities, so it's a big collaboration, and the port. I mean, so there's, lots of entities that have to come together to try and push this forward. So are you guys okay? Megan?
Yeah, I'm definitely supportive of writing it. I guess I had one question, maybe a clarity thing in the letter of, so this is asking for 20 million or the last 5 billion to get to 20 million?
It does say that again. It's asking.
So there's a sentence in the first paragraph. The project had received 15 million in funding to begin engineering, but that's not enough to complete engineering, which is expected to cost 20 million. And I read that as we only need 5 million more, but
No.
you said they need 20 million more. So can you clear? I guess
You're right. We should probably change that. We have received 15, 5 from Oregon, 5 from Washington, and 5 from the feds, but it's 20 additional.
Okay.
Is what we need.
So yeah, I'm super supportive of writing it, but if you can make that clear, so they know what we're asking. That's my only thought on the letter.
We should just put, is expected to cost an additional 20 million.
That would do it. Thank you.
Just throw another 0 on there and we're good.
Yeah, that would really be good. Another 0 on there. Oh, yeah. All right, great, you guys, thank you.
I'll just, no, go ahead.
Since we're editing, is it Mr. Van Broeklen, Ms. Van Broeklen, Chair Van Broeklen? So it's a nit, but since we're changing a word at all.
I think it's Chair Van Broeklen.
We'll check on that.
And I was just gonna say, I definitely support the letter. I support advocating for this project. Something that's just been on my mind is thinking how we can use our Region 1 Act members to advocate for more of our projects besides the bridge. And so just something that I've been thinking about. I'm happy to help in general. Yeah.
And I think there's different, at least for this, there's different pots of money that aren't ODOT projects,
Exactly.
but a lot of times it's just ODOT stuff. And so then we should have a list of those things too.
I know that, some of the funds that are going to be coming are going to be focused more on active transportation. There's going to be a lot of like bike and pedestrian kind of things. And so I think there are going to be some opportunities for us in those.
Okay, great, great. Let's see, I've got a couple more. See, the legislation. Yeah, the legislation creating the bi-state, not the bi-state working group, the bi-state commission is, I'll probably be bringing more information in a couple months back about that, because that will hopefully be happening and starting to form by the first of next year. So I'll bring more information about that in the next few months. Let's see, I need a copy of, hold on guys.
Do you want a motion for approving that letter, or are you good?
I think we're good. I think if you guys are all just thumbs up, I think.
I'm thumbs up, but
Okay.
I'm happy to make a motion as well.
Okay. Within the last month, I got a request from community member Gordy Sato. I don't know, probably some of you know Gordy. And he is working with a group that is trying to get a section of Highway 35 dedicated to the Nisei veterans. So the Japanese community that fought in the war while their families were in the internment camps, to honor them. And so the piece of road is between where Highway 35 starts here and Parkdale. And so I said, oh, I think that's a great idea. And Chuck Thompson was helping support that. And it's gotten through, I mean, I think it's basically kind of flying through the process. But I did get another request today saying, if you could just get one more letter into this last part that needs to approve it, that would be great. So I wanted to let you guys know that I had, sent a support letter. We thought it would be a great idea. And then if you guys are good with, continuing on to, put one more same support letter into this next thing to get it approved, but I think it's going to go right through. There's several different sections in the state. I don't think this will be the only section that will be dedicated, but we just had a lot of veterans from Hood River County that fought. So are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, that seems really appropriate for the community.
Okay. All right, everyone, Tim, Gladys, okay. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Abigail.
Thanks, Mayor. I wanted to share that the city received an award this week. This is from the American Council of Engineering Companies of Oregon. And this is in recognition of both the city and Windsor Engineering for all of the project work we've been doing at the wastewater treatment plant. So as you know, a lot of activity at the wastewater treatment plant right now with the new digester, the roof, the UV treatment facility. We're looking at next steps for the biosolids storage. And so it was great that Windsor had submitted this for an award, and it was received the 2022 Honor Award. I just know about the competition, it's the whole region, and the winner, the grand winner, was the PDX airport remodel. So we are in very good company. And so congratulations to us, the city, Jacobs Engineering, who operates the plant for us, Windsor. And thank you, Council, for your support of the wastewater treatment plant. It is being noted. Good work.
No sewer treatment plant, no city. Yay.
For all the work you guys do. So.
Yeah, great. All right, council call. Jessica?
I don't have anything. I'm just looking forward to the work session this Saturday, and thank you to staff for getting us ready for that.
Mark?
I got to play Kate a couple times in the last week, and it was fine. One of the things was, and Abigail and I were sitting in for the city for this houselessness collaboration. It was sort of their kickoff meeting, and the attendance was amazing. I mean, you look at this group of people and all the services that they represent, and I think that we were clear in that, our question is, how does the city help put these pieces together without actually owning a lot of the pieces, kind of thing. And I think that was clear, and we weren't the only ones that sort of had that perspective that, this is important. How do we help? We don't want to own the whole thing. So, I think my guess is it'll come up on Saturday a little bit when we talk about these things, but it was nice to see so many smart people working on such tricky issues. And
Thanks, Mark, for attending that for me.
and I think that's everything I have.
Right.
Oh, I have one other thing. So
Okay.
this is a question to you guys. So I'm going to a little work trip Wednesday and Thursday to a show that's vaccine required, mask required. We have this thing on Saturday. I can take a test on Saturday morning and come to the fire station, or I can make my own snacks and call in via Zoom. And it's entirely up to those of you who I work with. So maybe by the end of the week, you can tell me whether anyone's uncomfortable with me participating in person or not. So
Thanks, Mark.
Okay. All right. Well, email Mark. All right. Megan?
Really brief, but the housing task force met again last week. I'm losing track of time. And so they were really working on reviewing and narrowing down the strategies based on, the list you guys saw at our last meeting or 2 meetings ago. So that's moving forward. I think we'll have I don't know exactly what it'll be, but we'll have a very good list of limited number of strategies, which was our goal.
That was the idea, though.
Yeah, that's really hard to narrow when you're like, they all sound good and they're needed. So luckily someone else is making that final call and not me.
All right. Tim?
Thanks, Mayor. I too had a chance to sit in for the mayor. I actually participated in the Hood River County Energy Council meeting where they went through and continued their process of developing their 5-year work plan. They looked at projects across a wide variety of different categories, building issues, transportation, land use, community scale solutions, so on and so forth. It was a really productive session, and they've come up with just a whole bunch of really good projects that they're going to try to focus on and complete in the next 5 years. There was a discussion where they were interested in coming and presenting to council, talking more specifics about the projects. So I haven't had a chance to circle back with you, Kate, but maybe we can do that sometime in the next week.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, Tim.
Yep.
Gladys?
I do have an update, but I'm certain that folks have heard about this one. And this is around I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget these points. The city county coordinated homelessness response pilot. So that is in accordance to House Bill 4123. There are 8 pilot sites across the state. And it's really exciting to see that Hood River, Wasco, Sherman County, City of the Dalles, City of Hood River, and Mid-Columbia Community Action Council have all partnered together to have one application Each pilot will receive $1 million in state funding over 2 years to operationalize coordinated offices to strengthen their community's homelessness response. So thank you to all of you here for supporting this work. And that's all that I have for you all. Oh, actually, no, I lied. Thank you so much, Kevin, Will, Dustin, our partners at CDP, CCHC. It's really exciting to continue to see this project moving forward. And I appreciate all of your time and effort and the energy that you've all put into making this happen for our community members. So I appreciate your partnership. Thank you.
Thanks, Gladys. All right. We have an executive session this evening. So I need to read a script on that. The City Council will now meet in executive session pursuant to the Oregon Revised Statute 192.6601E to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions. Representatives of the news media and designated staff are allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made nor final action taken in executive session. The executive session is expected to last, do we know how long? 10 minutes. At the end of the executive session, City Council meeting will be adjourned and no action will be taken. We'll now discontinue the live feed and recording.